Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Tom and today we're doing another FPL first draft reveal, and to do that I'm joined by a very special guest from FPL Black Box, formerly of these parts as well. It's Az. Az, how are you doing?
Very special, Tom. Thank you very much. Not sure I feel too special. We've got loads of great guests. The Scout network is amazing now, isn't it? The amount of great people we've got, coming on doing these videos and everything. But yeah, no, I am good. I'm warm, and I don't know if you can see behind me, but there's a fan, but it's on my dog. So I'm just here, like literally sweating, and he's just lying there enjoying the nice cooling breeze. So yeah,
It's
things
all
we do
right
for
for
our
some
pets.
then, yeah.
I
Yeah.
know, I know. Yeah, he's loving it.
But yeah, as you mentioned, we've had your Black Box host on, Mark, as well. He did
Yep.
his draft. And we've also got Joe, we've got Tom Freeman, we've got Sam, we've had Ed. When you're watching this, that will have gone out yesterday. So do check those out. Ed's draft, no Haaland, no Salah, triple Arsenal defence. So that's an interesting watch if you're looking
That sounds
for a
like
laugh. Yeah.
That sounds like Ed. Yeah, I remember poor Ed. I remember years ago when I was doing these, and his view count was like half of everyone else. Bless him. But I reckon this year for banter alone, it might exceed that.
Yeah, we hope
Yeah.
so. So yeah, we're going to kick off with a discussion about Brighton, like we've been doing on these videos. We've been getting a bit of a perspective ahead of the new season, and there's lots to ask about Brighton with a new manager, and hopefully for you guys a better season with injuries as well, and no European football, which should make a difference. So for the podcast listeners, I've just brought on the screen a table from the Fantasy Football Scout members area, which you can make your own if you go on there. Links in the description. And it sorts the key Brighton FPL assets by minutes per expected goals. And top of that list is João Pedro, as who we'll talk about. He hasn't gone on the pre-season tour. He was a sort of an auto pick for lots of people with that price and the potential of penalties. But is he a no-go for now, do you think?
I think so. I think one of the key things we get over pre-season is we get a bit of a sense of who's playing in the matches. We get a sense of tactics, who's slotting into these things. I think particularly with new manager coming in as well, like he wants to be getting players on the pitch and trying to tweak tactics. And if João Pedro isn't going to even be fit to, train properly with the team or get involved in matches until, well, we don't know how long he's out for. But even if he comes in a week or two before the start of the season, I just think he's going to probably take some time to bed back in to the side, and he's going to favour the players that he's been with on this tour and in some of the other friendly matches. So unless something kind of miraculous happens and we see him, playing, up until the start of the season, he's an avoid for me. But I think we've got other good options at 5-5 that we're going to probably talk about in a bit.
Yeah, so yeah, we can go on that if you like. So Ferguson and Welbeck are also 5.5. I'm
Yeah, I didn't
guessing.
mean in Brighton.
Oh, you didn't mean a Brighton.
No, I mean I think you're stuck with Welbeck. I think if you're looking to stay with the Brighton forward, you haven't got many options. Ferguson also isn't on the tour. He had a really stop and start season last year. I'm hoping for big things from him last year, but he's got to be too big a gamble to start the season with. João Pedro, if he's fit and available, yeah, he's the option, but I don't think he will be. So that means Danny Welbeck up top, but I can't see too many people going with old Danny up front. And I think that's probably an avoid for me. There's
Yeah.
better options elsewhere. I mean, Armstrong, I think at 5-5, promoted strikers. I've had some success with in the past. Others have been a complete disaster, but they've got good fixtures. He's on penalties. He's already started pre-season pretty strongly, as well. And I think, if you're looking to keep that structure with that 5-5 striker up top, he's the easy pick.
Yeah, and then just quickly, who would take penalties in João Pedro's absence? Is it Pascal Gross?
You would think Pascal Gross, yeah, he sort of had penalties for a bit a couple of seasons ago, lost them. I think he did miss a couple. He's an okay penalty taker, but he's not like a Palmer. You wouldn't bet him to score one every time. And obviously, João Pedro, who wasn't someone who came in famous for penalties, I think he saw that as a opportunity to get some more goals for us last season, and his penalties are very, very strong. So he'll be straight back on them when he's back and in the side. But yeah, I'd imagine Pascal Gross takes them. I can't see anyone else really usurping that. You look around the team, you've got Gilmore, Matoma, Adingra if he plays, Welbeck. Hey, he's not now. It'll be Gross unless he leaves, of course, and then it's wide open as to who takes them. I've got absolutely no idea who takes them if Gross goes. It probably would be Welbeck or the striker, but yeah, one to monitor.
Yeah, definitely. So moving into the midfield, on the table that's on the screen, we've got Enciso is actually the top midfielder for mins per XGI, although he obviously had a very injury
Mm.
ravaged year. Followed by March, who again had an injury ravaged year, and then it's Gross, and then Matoma in fourth, and then Adingra quite a way behind Matoma and the rest actually. So I was chatting to Joe on his team selection, and he brought up your new signing as well from Newcastle, Minter, who is another winger, and he pointed out that it's really congested, and we don't have too many answers at the minute. So, how do you see that shaking out on the wing positions?
Well, I mean, even Matoma as well. You talk about injury ravaged. I mean, he was injured for the best part of towards the end of last season. He's just coming back. He has gone on the tour. He's gone to Japan. Expecting to see him play some minutes and expecting to see him have a really big part of kind of everything the new manager's looking to bring in. So I think he's a good option at 6'5". Again, we get to see him in pre-season. We get to see if he's looking sharp, if he's looking fit, if he's getting a couple of goals. If he's still a bit rusty, if he's looking a bit slow after the injury, then I think there's a lot of other good 6'5" midfielders. But he's definitely the pick out of those because I mean Minter coming in really does shake things up. Adingra's spot is now, where's he going to play? Is it, I would expect it to be Matoma, Pedro, and Minter as that kind of three. But then if you've got Enciso, you've got March, and you've got Adingra, they're going to want to play as well. And Adingra, particularly last season, was so good for us. So yeah, there's a lot to kind of unpick there. They're all just an avoid. I think Matoma's the one if he has a strong preseason, but I think there's probably better options to go for. So yeah, at the moment it's a little bit shaky in terms of the Brighton attack.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the defence now, and there's a name that's not on this table, obviously, because he played very limited minutes last year, but he's been doing the rounds on social media this week, and that is Barco, who
Mm.
is a 4 million defender, attacking left back or left wing back. He arrived in January, I think, after being out on loan, got a few games. And Estupinan has been injured this summer. He missed the Copa America as well. And I think you were saying just before that he hasn't gone to Japan either. So is there a chance there that we could start the season with a 4 million left back at Brighton?
I think so, and I was before I even realised that Superman hadn't gone on the tour. I was thinking about how we're going to line up, and I think a three at the back is very likely. Obviously, Dunk is the kind of linchpin. Van Heck had a great season for us last year, so he's going to be there. But you look at Igor, you look at Webster. I don't think either of those two particularly impressed, which means we could see a Stupinan come in at left centre back. It's a position he played for us a fair bit, which means that left wing back we have got an opportunity, and that could go to March if he was back and fit. That's one way of kind of shoehorning him into the team. We could see like a Matoma going back to left wing back, but I think in the games I saw from Barco, there's obviously a lot of promise there. Very attacking. He's got a very good reputation coming into this. I think he was like the most like the most bought player on Football Manager or something because he's got like the highest reputation on the game and he's going to like turn into like a world class player. So we obviously want to see that happening this year. But I think he's got a very very strong chance of starting the season. Yeah, and again he's someone to play close attention to because if we see him get a couple of starts pre-season, he's going to be he's going to be a lock in pretty much everyone's teams. Then the question is, are you brave enough to play him in the first few weeks? Do you want him as just a bench fodder, or actually have you got a Brighton wing back with some fairly decent fixtures in the first three or four? Are you brave enough to actually play them in those matches and maybe spread the funds elsewhere?
Yeah, definitely. It's much more exciting than a promoted team centre back as well.
Yeah,
You would have thought much higher upside there. And then just quickly, Lewis Dunk, 4.5. For me, I thought that was a really good price for a defender with a bit of goal threat. And the keeper as well is a little bit uncertain at the minute with reports that Verbruggen's got an injury. So I assume
we
Steele
can't
would
catch
come
a
in.
break.
No.
We can't catch a break. No, I think Verbruggen is first choice when he's fit. If he's not fit for the start of the season, Steele will start. Steele is perfectly fine keeper. I think Verbruggen is like the next level up, so I'd expect him to come back in pretty soon. So yeah, I think you want to wait and see on Estupinan because if he is going to be playing at left wing back, I think he's going to be a factor in our seasons, even at 5 million. But Dunk's a strong choice at 4 5. I just have a bit of concern about our potential for clean sheets. New manager, we still haven't really strengthened in that defensive midfield spot. We still haven't really replaced Casado and McAllister, who are such big parts for us. Yeah, the tactics, if the tactics are very very different to anything that we've seen at Brighton, so there might be a bit of an adjustment period as well. But yeah, 4-5 for Dunk is fine. There's good 4-5 options. He's probably not in my pick of the 4-5s. Something like Anderson, Konsa. I think they're stronger than Dunk, but not a bad pick.
Yeah, really good insight there. And what I'll do now is I'll bring up the fixtures and we can just sort of have a overall discussion about Brighton. They are sort of towards the bottom of the maybe mid-table actually on the ticker. They've got they start with Everton away, then Man United at home, then Arsenal away. But then if game weeks 4 and 5, they've got two really good standout games: Ipswich at home and Forest at home. So if we do think that he's going to be playing, holding him on the bench for 3 and then playing him for 4 and 5 could be quite tempting. So how do you see those first 5 from first of all an offensive point of view?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, game week 3, Arsenal away. That's you're going to be benching all your Brighton players for that. But I don't mind the kind of the fixtures around it. Everton away. I have this fear of Everton after I watched them absolutely destroy us a couple of seasons ago. It was like 6-1 or something. Awful game of football. But I think it's a good first test for the new manager. So it'll be interesting to see how we kind of line up in that. And it's going to be two very different styles against each other with Dyche. We know what Dyche is about. We're less sure about what Herzl about. So yeah, we'll have to kind of wait and see on that. Man United at home, I think we will score. In that we've had a good record against Manchester United over the years. They're strengthening a fair bit, but again, new signings, whole new defence probably coming in. It's probably quite a good time to play them. And then 2 home games after Arsenal, Ipswich, and Forest. So it gives us a bit of a chance to assess Matoma, Pedro, and these players. I think Barco's obviously going to be very strong. I think again, if he's going to be starting at left wing back, even those first 2 games, he's someone that you can look to play in those. But obviously, you want to avoid the Arsenal game. But I think it's probably, if everything is as it is now, I think it's probably going to be an avoid on everyone but Barco for me going into the season, with a view of bringing in someone in game week 4.
Yeah, definitely. Those 4 and 5 fixtures look really, really good, especially, and that's a good segue into the rule changes, which we'll talk about now, especially if you've saved up 2 or 3 transfers with the new rules. So yeah, we'll talk about the changes in a second, but I'll just quickly bring up your rank history before we get into your team. Obviously, you've been a very experienced manager, been playing for...
What was it you said to me?
So
surely you're not that old.
I didn't think you were that old. But anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Makes me feel very, very young.
But yeah, we've got 16 seasons, I think, if my maths is right, on the screen. 4 top 10k finishes, which is really good. Most recently, a couple of years ago. But yeah, it's getting harder, isn't it? It's getting harder to do well.
Well, it is. I mean, if you look at my ranks from 2012 right down to 2020, what's my lowest rank there? About 60k, something like that. And most of those seasons I was disappointed not to be 10k. 10k was like that. I mean, it still is the marker for a lot of people, but I think particularly around that time, they were good finishes, but they weren't like great finishes. Whereas now, I think if you're finishing 50, 60k, I think you can be really happy with those because the game has got harder. There's more people, more engagement with the game and everything. And yeah, I mean, if you look at my last 4 seasons, I've had one good season, within the top 5k, but 130k, 140k. And last year, I mean, let's not even dwell on that. My worst season, since I started playing the game 16 years ago. And I think the key thing with those 3 seasons, which haven't been as good, is I've got off to really, really poor starts. And obviously you can recover and you can, get to grip with it. But if you're 2 million, 3 million in the world after 10, 15 game weeks, it is becoming harder and harder and harder to try and get back into that top 100k. So a good start is key. And, we're going to be talking about the rule change. I think it's going to be even more key going forward, because if you're left behind and you haven't got lots of transfer to use, and you're 2 million, 3 million, and people are changing their teams, by 4 or 5 players, you could come unstuck very quickly, I think.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into those rule changes then. Starting with the transfers, you can now roll up to 5 transfers. Do you think that'll benefit your style of play? Do you think? I mean, I was joking on FFS Twitter that I don't think many people will have the patience to get to five free transfers. But do you think you'll benefit from this rule change, or you'll just play as normal?
No, I won't benefit from it because I'm too trigger happy with transfers. I like to I like to be engaged with the game. I like to feel like I'm actively ruining my season rather than just passively sitting back and watching it all. But I'd rather bring in a player and it goes badly than you don't move on that player and you could have, got 15, 20 points. So I think I'm still going to be aggressive in the way I play, and my kind of hope is that it forces some people to maybe be a bit more passive with it because they want to save the transfers and they might miss out on going early on players who do well. I think particularly with price rises as well early in the season, we can see when Mark, for example, last year built up a lot of team value very, very early in the season by making these early transfers. And if people are less wanting to do that because they want to save the transfers, that might be an advantage for those that are going earlier. And I know for a fact that is a complete odds of anything Joe would have said on this because he's very much ignore prices, they don't matter, wait for information. So yeah, we play the game, very differently. But I think it's a good rule change because I think it encourages different and divergent thinking, and that's what we want to see in FPL. We want to see people go different ways. We want to see people, it'd be fun, to play against someone and suddenly realize they've saved up 4 transfers, and you're beating them, I don't know, by 20, 30 points, but then they've got 4 transfers. I mean, how much value do you put on each one of those transfers? We don't know because we haven't seen it in the game yet. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works.
Yeah, yeah. And come back to something you said earlier about getting off to a good start is really, really important. Even more so this year, perhaps with less blanks and less doubles, which gives you sort of less. There'll be less variance. There'll be less massive game weeks to exploit and catch up from.
Yeah, and I'm in two minds about it because I mean the double game week for me at the end of last season and the blank game week were brutal. The blank game week for everyone who free hitted in that, obviously 18, 20 points was like the average. It was terrible. And then the double game week where I'd already used the free hit, there was people getting 200 points. And there is a lot of variance in FPL and a lot of luck and things like that. But I mean that's unrecoverable really when you're on the wrong side of it. And I finished 400k in the world, whereas if I'd been on the right side of it, saved my chip in 28 and used it in the double game week, I could have finished in the top 100k. So it's an exciting part of the game, the double game weeks, because I enjoy planning them. It's exciting seeing your players potentially get big points and hauls, and that's what we want at the end of the day. But I do think it maybe suits the more, I'm not using the word X, but the veteran players of the game who are planning and these strategies and things to not have that because it becomes too much of a focus and there's too much luck involved.
Yeah, and then speaking of luck involved, we've obviously got the mystery chip, which no one knows what that's going to be. But I mean, what are you thinking there? I know Sam. I heard you on the Q&A say laugh when Sam said she wanted the all-out attack back.
Well, can you believe it? Can you believe it? It took us years to get rid of that chip, and then she wants it back. Like I said to her on the stream, I don't really know. I don't even know how to talk about it because it could be anything. I don't love it. I like to know what we've got, what tools we've got at our disposal. I can't even think about what kind of chip it's going to be. I mean, there's ideas from other games that I've played. Like you get double points for your defenders one week, park the bus chip, or you get captains for your vice and your normal captain. But I don't know why they wouldn't just have that as a chip. What is the mystery around it? What is that element? What are they going for with not telling us? Is it just to keep engagement going until that point, or is it because there's something linked to it? Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what they come up with.
Yeah, definitely. And then the final rule change was obviously in the bonus points. I know you talked about this on Black Box, and we had Mark on before the launch who discussed it in depth as well. And he was pretty down on defenders with the fact that they're losing 4 BPS for every goal they concede, and attackers are now going to get shots on target and fouls won. So players like Salah, Saka are going to be Foden are going to be much higher on the BPS. So do you agree with Mark? Do you think it might lead you to invest less into defence this year?
Yeah, I mean, I've given this quite a lot of thought. I mean, if hasn't seen Black Box, so the research Mark did on that kind of blew my mind last week, especially when I was coming into things quite fresh, not really thinking about FPL too much. And suddenly he's got all these charts and numbers, and he's like made what if hypothetical situations of things. And yeah, I mean that's what you get from Mark a lot of the time. For me, I mean, keepers, I think it massively affects keepers. I think keepers has always been a spot where we've invested less and expected less. I think that's going to be even more the case this time. I think when a keeper could still feasibly get 1 or 2 bonus if they made 6 saves and conceded 2 goals. We're just not going to see that happening again. So you need to prioritize the keepers with who are getting the clean sheets, or you just need to pay less and just accept there's not going to be much in it between them. So that's my strategy, just to invest very light in the goalkeeper position. In terms of attacking defenders, I mean, really, when you're paying money for a defender, you still expect clean sheets anyway. They're still the kind of bread and butter, the first things you look for. Porro was frustrating for massively large periods of last season because predicting defender returns is difficult, and you want to have that kind of safety net of the clean sheet. So I'm not sure anything massively changes there. I don't think Vardiol, for example, is a bad option. He's still got the amazing attacking threat. I'm still expecting City to be one of the tightest defenses in the league. Trent's an interesting one because obviously he has got the attacking returns, he has got set pieces, but Liverpool defensively, what's going to happen there? He needs to kind of justify 7 million by at least getting some defensive shutouts. I'm not sure what we're going to see from Slot's team in the first few weeks, but they've got very, very good fixtures. So it's a bit of a roll of the dice with him. And yeah, when we come onto the team, I've gone for Trent, and it's because I'm kind of not that inspired by the rest of the options. So yeah, I don't know. There's pros and cons. I think defenders are obviously going to be affected by it, but it's still a case of timing. And if you focus on clean sheets and accept attacking returns are a bit of a bonus, then you'll probably be all right.
Yeah, makes sense. So yeah, as you mentioned, we'll reveal your team in a second, but just before that, I'll do a quick shout out for the Fantasy Football Scout members area, which is currently 40% off for pre-season, and it won't be cheaper, so make sure you sign up. The content that you've seen in the video so far, the fixture ticker and the stats table, are all from the premium members area, so you can make your own tables with our hundreds of Opta stats and now our Statsbomb expected goals as well. And then the fixture ticker, you can alter the difficulty for every team. If you disagree with us, you can remove game weeks, add game weeks, so you can plan ahead and plan that perfect start, which has been highlighting the importance of. And I know you use plenty of data on Black Box as well. Yeah,
we do, and yeah, and I'm very excited for Statsbomb to be coming in because that is something that I've wanted to see for ages. And XG is such an important metric for us when we're picking players and looking to decide on captains and all those things. And the fact that we're going to get in this new information, which takes into account goalkeeper position and defenders in the position, everything like that. Creating a more powerful metric is going to be really helpful. So all our stats on Black Box are going to change with Statsbomb coming in. And yeah, there's nothing else like it, I don't think, in terms of other competitors and things. So yeah, good time to get involved in Scout.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, do check out the link in the description for 40% off. Hey guys, we'll get back to Az's team reveal very, very soon. But first of all, I just got a quick shout out to a brand new free fantasy game that is taking the fantasy community on social media by storm at the minute. It's just launched, and that is Fantasy EFL. So I'm going to play a quick intro video, and then I'm going to chat to Chris about the game itself and what we're going to be doing on Scout to promote it. So Chris, that looks really exciting. A brand new format, new rules, new teams, new leagues, hundreds of new players to choose from. So are you looking forward to it?
Oh, I am so excited. I'm already excited because of FPL, but this is just it's just like all Christmas is coming at once. I'm really excited by it. It's a completely different game. It's a completely different rule set. As one of our team, who should remain nameless, said, it's thrown a hand grenade into the fantasy football rule book, which I think is a brilliant way to describe what they're doing. Some stuff's really cool. Some of it sounds a bit crazy, but I think it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. So there's just so much to understand and think about. And I'm just going to quickly go through some of the key factors here, and you can interrupt me or suggest if you want. But I'm going to go through some of the key points here. So to begin with, as you say, lots of players almost 2,000 players. That's what they're saying anyway on the website. I mean, it's certainly 1,500 plus. There's 72 teams you're getting to pick from across 3 divisions. That's an insane number of players to choose from. And it gets even crazier when you can see you only have 7 slots available. So like lots of players, few slots. Formation wise, you've got three to choose from. You need a keeper, 2 or 3 defenders, 2 or 3 midfielders, and 1 or 2 forwards. So there's like actually 3 different formations that you can pick. There are no prices, so there's not even a limitation on your player selection by price. There's just anybody you want within the formation, and the fact you can only pick 2 players from any one team. So you can't fill it with Leeds or Birmingham or whoever you think are going to be tops, but you can get players from all across. It's incredible. So what this probably means is that because only 7 players, I think early on people are going to focus on the Championship because that's probably the most familiar to a lot of people. Aren't watching a lot of the football and aren't maybe a fan of the League One, League Two team. But I think that's going to be a kind of a mistake if you want to compete, because I think you can definitely do well with those players. Maybe you do incredibly well, but I think you've really got to think a little bit across the different leagues, and take advantage of the massive goals scored and maybe some inequalities in League One and League Two, to get big scores and to be up in the leaderboard. So you get to pick 2 teams each week that also score points on top of your 7 players, and that's quite interesting. But because you can only pick each team 5 times, so it's not, you can't again go Leeds. You've got to basically decide across the season when you're going to pick players, and we'll be doing our fixture ticker and offering advice on that. And there's some really interesting strategy to start thinking about that. So you don't want to blow them all the first week. And when those teams get 5 points for a win and 3 points for a draw, so that's okay. Obviously, you want teams that win. That's what you really care about. You get an extra 2 points if it's a away win, an extra 2 points if it's a clean sheet, and an extra 2 points if they're scoring 2 goals or more. So a team wins away, scores 2-0. That's 9 points. Is that right? No, 11. 11 points. I'm going mad. It's 11 points. That's crazy. 11 points in. I mean, that's like, FPL 11 points winning. And that's assuming it's a single game week. So game weeks run from Thursday to Wednesday. And early on, it's going to be really kind of Friday or Saturday to Monday, a bit like the FPL. It's not be that different. But as we get into the season, as more games fit in, and as there's disruptions, we're going to start seeing definite doubles, maybe even treble game weeks. Treble game weeks. Come on. Love it. So that's really, you can kind of predict some of the doubles now, because there's already got the initial fixtures, but obviously as with the Premier League, fixtures get moved for TV and other reasons and competitions, but you can start looking at fixtures now and deciding where there's going to be doubles, and we'll be providing a fixture ticket to give you that kind of insight. We're obviously going to be right there with you, providing content around that. FFS is going to be full up with articles looking at things from strategies and set piece takers and fixture tickers and guides to particular teams and form guides and all the player positional stuff we usually do for a fantasy game. We are full on for this game. We're very excited, as you can tell. But not only are we doing it on FFS, we're also working with the EFL directly. We are a partner with them on this game. We're providing content for players and tools for players on the official EFL site. So you'll see some stuff we do on FS, some stuff we do on EFL, some stuff we do on both. But we'll be linking back and forward to that site. So we're so ingrained in this game. We're very excited. And then if you're a premium member, a lot of the stuff we'll be doing, first season is going to be free, but if you're a premium member, there will be stuff for you extra, no extra charge. If you're playing this game, you'll get some extra stuff that people don't. Anything data backed will be articles will be hidden as they usually are. There'll be a couple of extra tools that we're kind of working on, which will help you with. We'll be doing team reveals as usual, and some maybe deeper members only strategy pieces. And there might be 1 or 2 other things we're adding, which will be very exciting, but we'll come back to you on that. But there will be content for members areas, so there's a reason to be a member, but you don't have to, a premium member. And then we've got a mini league, of course, and we're going to work out what prize is going to be for that. But if you go to, I think it's JFV419AC, or click the link on FFScout.co.uk, you can join our mini league. So please do that. We'll announce sort of what we're doing in terms of prize incentives this week. And then we're also asking for your insight. So we set up a new email, fantasyefl@fantasyfootballscout.co.uk, and we really do want to hear from you on the socials. Obviously, you can go to socialist back at Fantasy Football Scout, but on the emails as well. We want to hear from you. We love fantasy. Our team are experts. We're not maybe experts at every of the League One, League Two Championship clubs. We know you guys are out there that do know that, so we love to hear from you. point out we've got it spectacularly wrong, suggest some interesting new assets we might not have thought of, and just tell us what you think about the game. Yeah, we think this is a brilliant thing for fantasy world. We think it's great. Yeah, great for every player, follower of the EFL clubs, and we're super excited to see it get started. And it does start soon. It's a week earlier than FPL. 9th of August is the first game, so we've only got a couple of weeks now. So get in there, get to fantasy.fl.com, pick your team, and let's go.
Yeah, definitely. And for people who can't wait for FPL to start, as you said, that's going to start. The EFL Fantasy is going to start a week early. So get in there. The link is in the description to create your team, to join our mini league, and to check out our resources that we've got on Scout. As Chris said, we got so much strategy, fixture tickers, team profiles. All that is going to be coming soon. So get involved in this new, free, very innovative fantasy game that we'll have much more content on in the coming days and weeks ahead. So, but for now, thank you very much, Chris, and we'll go back to Az's team reveal. But now we'll go into what the people are waiting for, and that is Az's first draft, which is on the screen now, and I'll read it out for the podcast. I'm going to be honest, I had to research the goalkeeper because I never heard of him before. But anyway,
always a good start. Yeah.
So we'll start Miguel in goal from Nottingham Forest, and then a back three of Trent, Gvardiol, and Konsa. A five in midfield with Cole Palmer, Gordon, Eze, Johnson from Spurs, and everyone's favourite bandwagon at the minute, Morgan Rogers. And then two up top in HAALAND and Isak, who is currently captain. And then the bench is Bentley, the Wolves backup keeper, Anderson from Palace, Armstrong, who, as is mentioned, from Southampton, and who we've also mentioned, Barco, as his fifth defender. So I guess we'll start with the sort of big three that you've picked, and that is Trent, Palmer, and HAALAND. I'll be honest, I haven't seen Palmer in a lot of drafts. I know he's one of the most selected players, but on these videos he has been ignored slightly for Salah and a bit of love for Nkunku as well. So I guess the first question is sort of why Palmer and HAALAND and not Salah?
Well, I think the first thing you do when you create a team is obviously you pick the players who you don't think you can be without for when the season starts. So Isak was the first player like in my side because it's a home game against Southampton. The way he was playing towards the end of last season, the fixtures just in general. Yeah, I mean I don't need to go. Everyone's got him, so there's no point in going on too much about him. But then I'm looking at the others. I'm thinking, well, Salah, I know his pedigree. I'm not going to sit here and say he's done so well for us over the last couple of seasons. I'm not going to say he's a bad option. Obviously, Ipswich away in the first game, but I also saw things I didn't like from him last year. I saw him wide a lot of the time. I think he was finding ways to get goals, which makes me think at some point that's maybe going to run out a little bit. The fixtures are very, very good, but I've seen Salah and HAALAND drafts, and I think there is weaknesses in the team. I think the compromises you have to make when you're paying that much money for those two players. I don't think you can have Palmer, for example. And I'm really surprised that I've seen quite a few teams without Palmer as well, because I think trying to cover him with Nkunku is just an absolute recipe for disaster. I think he is so integral to Chelsea, and the fixtures are very, very nice, apart from the Man City game to start with. On penalties, he played a lot in the season, obviously, but didn't play too much for England, so he's going to come kind of straight back into that side. I mean, he was just one of those players. Isak and Palmer were just in straight away. I had a look at what I could do with the HAALAND money if I didn't go there, but in the end, I felt like I was able to build a strong enough team, having HAALAND in as well. So Foden and Saka are two players I want, obviously, but they've played a lot of minutes for England, so I'm going for the one who's played less. And yeah, so started with those three and built my team around that, really.
Yeah, and then I guess saving the money, Palmer, Salah, that's obviously 2 million, allowed you to get Trent and Gvardiol, a couple of big defenders in.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I want a Liverpool player because the fixtures look nice, and I don't think it's a case. I think there will be a player, or there could well be a player that emerges that isn't cover for Salah. That is cover for Salah in the same way that Nkunku isn't cover for Palmer. If we see a strong preseason from Diaz, for example, I'm not going to say Darwin. I'm not going there. But Gakpo potentially if he has a good preseason. We don't know how those tactics are going to go, but I could see myself shift to one of the other Liverpool mids because obviously they're a lot cheaper. But at the moment, I think Trent is probably the second best option in that side. And I'm obviously put off a bit by things like the bonus point potential and the fact that Liverpool defensively already look a little bit shaky. But with set pieces, with the fact bombed down the fact he's fit, I think is such a big thing because he struggled with fitness again last season. So I think however Slot decides to use him, he's going to be integral to the way they play football. And I think 7 million is a good price. He's come down a lot since last year, for example. And I think he's going to be neglected by quite a few because I think a lot of people are going to go for Salah, and I'm not seeing many teams with Salah and Trent, for example. So I think he's better coverage of Salah than the other kind of cheap players are for some of the other picks.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, we'll chat a little bit about your goalkeepers because I think you're the first person on here who has got a dud on the bench. I remember
a dud in the start 11, pretty right there as well.
But yeah, Mark was sort of saying that he thinks it's really important to have two playing keepers. I think Joe was as well because of the rolling transfers, which means if you do get an injury, you're more likely to save it instead of having to do the keeper transfer. But I guess saving money is really tempting on that second keeper.
I've had seasons where I've had two rotating keepers, and I find it very frustrating when you're trying to. I remember I had Henderson at Forest, and I think it was Danny Ward when he was at Leicester, and like they were quite cheap. I was rotating them every week and getting it wrong every week. Like my player would concede within the first 5 minutes, the other would go on and keep a clean sheet, make 6 saves, and get 2 bonus. I find it very frustrating, and I had bad luck with goalkeepers last season in the sense that I think I had 2 injuries. I had Areola and I got rid of him for Sanchez, and then Sanchez immediately got injured as well. But that is bad luck. Like we're not expecting goalkeeper injuries, and I think if that happens, I'll just take it on the chin. Take a hit if I need to, get them out, use that extra transfer, whatever, and just accept it was unfortunate, rather than kind of handicapping myself. Because 0.5 million, particularly at the start of the season, I put so much stock in having that extra bit of money because a 0.1 rise is a 0.5 rise because you can't just make a like for like transfer. So keeping a bit extra behind is useful. So I'd rather have 0.5 in the bank and only one playing goalkeeper, for example, than having 2 4-5s.
Yeah, and then the goalkeeper specifically himself. How did you come to the conclusion that Forest was the answer? And have you ruled out going more expensive?
Absolutely not. The goalkeeper position is, let's not even pretend this is a locked in pick. Forest had a big problem with set pieces last season. Their defensive numbers were okay, and for large parts of the season, their defensive numbers were really positive, but they clearly struggled with set pieces, and they conceded way too many goals and chances from set pieces. I think this keeper's 6'8", something like that. He's an absolute giant of a man. And I think they're going to be spending a lot of time focusing on how to improve from set pieces. They have to because it was obviously such a glaring weakness for them. So if they can address that issue and keep the same kind of defensive numbers, they should be all right. I mean, the main thing with them is Forest have got great opening fixtures. Bournemouth, Southampton, Wolves, Brighton, Fulham. That's 4 of their first 5, and the Liverpool away game. So I'm looking at it in kind of 5 or 6 spells and thinking that the other 4 or 5 goalkeeper I really like is the Palace goalkeeper, because Palace again have got great fixtures. That run kind of even further than that potentially. There's just a little bit of uncertainty between Johnson and Henderson. I mean, there is between Miguel and Sells, for example, but we're seeing pre-season what happens with that. But yeah, I'll monitor it. I'll see if Forest go and concede like 3 free kicks goals in like the first 3 pre-season games, then obviously they haven't addressed it and it is one to move off. But I have a feeling they're gonna be a pretty good defensive side, particularly at home this season.
Yeah. Have you ruled out going more expensive, would you say? Are you set on a 4-5?
I think so. I had Pope. The first drop I put together, I had Pope in. I do quite like him as a 5. I think Pickford could well be the top scoring goalkeeper again this season, with the 1-0 shutouts, with the fact that he doesn't really have a lot of players around him who are going to be scoring hat tricks and hoovering up all those bonus points, winning loads of fouls. I like that kind of area. Losing Onana's a big thing for them. He was one of their star players, and obviously he's now gone to Aston Villa. So is that going to affect them? I think it probably might. I like Leno at 5 as well. With Fulham's fixtures looking the way they are, too. I just don't think there's going to be much in it between the 4-5s and the 5. And like I said, I think that 0.5, particularly now, is really valuable. and I can assess it. And if I wildcard in game week 6 or 7, and I see a 5 million goalkeeper who is just head and shoulders above everyone else, then I can think about moving to them then.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, extending that theme of sort of the 0.5 million being really important. You've obviously picked sort of Rodgers as your 7th attacker and Armstrong as your 8th attacker. So are you set on having like a really strong playing 8th attacker, or is that just for now?
Yeah, I mean, Rodgers is a bandwagon, right? And we know what tends to happen with these preseason bandwagons. They tend to be a complete disaster. But I think he signed in January. He kind of came into that team because there was obviously injuries with Buendia and Ramsey. But every game I've seen him play for Aston Villa, he's not a bench player. He has an impact on every game I've seen him play, and he was one of their standout players towards the end of last season, which drove them towards a Champions League place. He's already scored in pre-season. He's kind of in the lineup. There's the coaching staff are talking him up already, and 5 million is a very, very kind price for a potentially starting attacking player for such a good side as Aston Villa. So I think he's worth a punt unless something dramatic happens in pre-season. Armstrong, I think, is the play. I think he's the 5-5 kind of enabler that allows the Vardiols, the Trents, and all that. And Armstrong would be the one that I'd normally play. The fixtures are pretty good from game week 2, but I'm looking at Armstrong versus Rodgers in game week 1 and thinking, okay, I think Rodgers got a slightly better fixture there, so he can have that game and hopefully start the season strongly after a good pre-season. But then Armstrong with penalties and the fixtures being nice as well is nice. But it's a good position to have. If I'm having to choose between one of those two each week, it's a nice predicament to be in until it goes wrong, like it does with the goalkeepers, and I end up with loads of points on my bench.
Yeah. And then, yeah, looking at this team, I guess what people might be saying is, are you avoiding Arsenal? Is that sort of choice or necessity? Obviously, the best defence statistically last year, and they've still got some reasonably priced attackers in Odegaard, Havertz, and Martinelli, who are all sort of 8-8-5. So, are you looking to maybe squeeze one of them in?
Yeah, I mean, defensively, they're obviously pricey, but I've got the Trent option there to go down to Saliba or Gabriel. Or whoever kind of takes my fancy, if I need to. I think they'll start off the season strongly. I think there's probably a couple of clean sheets in there, but I'm backing on Trent outscoring them essentially. In midfield, though, I just think Saka he's probably the only one I'm going to want. I do like Odegaard. I sort of toy with Odegaard, but he can be quite a frustrating player to own because he can drop deep, sit back, orchestrate play. You want him a bit further up the pitch. He's had a bit of a price hike this year. As well, so kind of happy to avoid him. And then Martinelli, Trossards, you've got Havertz up top, who I like, but as an 8 million striker, I don't know. I think he might not be as effective as some of the other options. So there's a place for Saka when he's fit and available. And that could involve me selling Haaland, bringing in Saka and Foden. I've got Palmer there, who I could move over to Saka. Potentially downgrade Trent and look to bring him in. I need to have a route to Saka because I think he's going to go on and have another 250 point season. But I think particularly early in the season, we can wait. He's been absolutely, he must be knackered after everything he's done over the last year or so. So I'm hoping he gets a bit of an extended break, and that might mean he takes a little bit more time to get up to speed.
Yeah, and then I guess instead of sort of the Arsenal boys, you've got Eze, Johnson, Gordon, who are all exciting picks, quite differential as well, especially Johnson. Sam was hyping up Brennan Johnson as well. She said he's been looking good in pre-season, and he really underperformed his XG last year, so there's definitely scope to improve there. Were there some other mid-price mids that were unlucky to miss out, maybe Nkunku, Bowen, or do these three stand clear in your opinion?
There's a lot of good 6-5 options, I think, in midfield. And actually, yeah, I mean, Sam has to take credit for me shifting down to Johnson. But I mean, honestly, there's so many. I mean, I had a list here: Gibbs White, Matoma, Kudus, Nkunku, Neto, Garnacho's at 6-5 as well. I'm seeing Hudson-Odoi at 5-5. If you want to save even more money, potentially. Even Grealish has gone down to 6-5. Like if he can somehow get his place back in the team and start playing a bit more regularly. I think he's a good option at that price. I just think for the moment with Leicester away in that first game, I'm expecting goals in that match. And if Johnson's going to have a strong pre-season, like you said, he's had good underlying stats last year. I think he might be a little bit underpriced. And you're looking for like the first bandwagon, aren't you? That's what you're looking for. You're looking for a player who's quite cheap, starts the season strongly, and suddenly goes up 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. And Johnson has that. He's got that kind of aura about him at the moment. He's not going to be too popular starting the season because there's other picks around that price, and people might be going, Sons and Madison's, even if you're going within Spurs, Porro, for example. But if Johnson gets a goal game week 1, we're going to see a lot of attention being drawn to him. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and I guess obviously you've gone for a 3-5-2 just finally on the formation. You tempted to switch a mid-price mid to a Tony or a Mateta or another striker like that, or is midfield where it's at for you?
I don't think so. I think we've seen midfield becoming stronger and stronger for us over the last few years. The issue has always been, having a 4-5 striker that could be quite limiting in the sense that you haven't got anyone to bring in if you kind of need them. But I think with Rodgers and Armstrong there, I can go kind of both ways. So if I think Rodgers got the better fixture, or maybe Southampton look really poor in the first few weeks, hopefully I've got that option there to stay in with 5 in the mid, or I can bring in Armstrong at 5-5 because they're both more expensive than kind of obviously the cheapest basement options, but they both give you an option to be able to be flexible. But I mean, to be fair, I think mostly if I keep this team, so I keep this team for the first 3 or 4 weeks, I think it's mostly going to be a 3-4-3 with Armstrong playing more over Rodgers. But I think generally over the season, midfield is probably where the points are, most points potential is.
Yeah, very interesting. And then just finally, is that captaincy? How locked is that captaincy on Isak, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. It's home game against a newly promoted team for a strong attacking side, and Isak, one of the informed players from last year. I haven't got Salah at Ipswich. I think if you've got him, he's the easy one to go for. Obviously, Haaland plays away at Chelsea. He has got a good record there. He tends to score goals against Chelsea. Palmer's the other premium option, but again, home game against Man City. I would expect Newcastle to win that game comfortably. I mean, of all the opening fixtures to have as a newly promoted team, that is a tough game. I mean, Anfield for Ipswich as well, and St James's Park for Southampton. They are tough fixtures, but I've got a funny feeling about Ipswich. I think they could upset the cart a little bit. And if Liverpool are struggling a little bit to gel and new tactics, new players coming in, all that kind of thing, they might find it trickier than Southampton, who go to St James's Park, who I would have thought are going to be kind of, A, they're going to be really up for it because they always are, but B, they've got a lot of players back from injury. Pope's going to be back. They had so many problems last year, and they know how to play under Eddie Howe. I can't see anything but a big Newcastle win in that. Ipswich are at home to Liverpool, which is it's maybe trickier than people are giving it credit for, because going to Portman Road and having to play against those fans who are going to be going absolutely nuts when you're not fully gelled and not fully up to speed yourselves. That is obviously a much tougher game than going away to St James's Park.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Ed was right. He's been calling out the Isak captaincy since the start. So
well, let's change that then. If Ed's saying that, bloody hell.
So that's a good-looking team, as a little bit different with Palmer as well from the ones we've had, and Trent, a bit more investment in the back from the ones that we've had previously as well. So lots of interesting stuff there. And yeah, thank you very much, Az, for joining me today. If you're listening on the podcast, do drop us a 5-star review and ensure your downloads are turned on, which really helps us out. And make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel and go and check out FPL Black Box, Az's channel, along with Mark. And Az will be back this week for another Q&A with Sam on Thursday. So Az, thank you very much for joining me.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. See you again soon.